The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm gonna say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, let's try it now. Do we have testing? Is that's the microphone? And how are we now? Y'all hear me? All right, I think we have sound. Sorry about that. That was a technical thing. I don't know if that's the cord going out or what, but sorry about that. Welcome to hello everybody. Welcome to Geopolitics the Ghost. I'm your host, Gordon McCormick. Let's start that again. This is Badlands Media. June 12th, 2026. Sorry for being tardy to the party. Yeah, we got plenty of things going on. Appreciate. I got to check it on the chat, and it's a good thing I did. These y'all let me know that I was muted. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. We'll have to take a look at that another time. So let's jump right into the news. All right, everyone's saying 5-5, so I think we're good. Let's roll. The big news of the day, of course, would be the deal, right? The Iran deal. So let me pull that up. We have a deal announced. Of course, we've had a lot of discombobulation this week. We've had a lot of schizophrenia from President Trump. And Bernie Bright and I did the Badlands Blitz this morning. We recorded it for tomorrow and talked about this. I talked about this a lot in the news brief this week. And basically the metaphor that I use to describe what I think has happened is that, or the metaphor I use to describe Trump's pattern. The pattern is, I'll pull up the news brief, is basically like a cyclone. It's like a hurricane, right? Hurricane has two movements. It has the actual trajectory of the storm, right? And then it has the cyclone itself. And so if you think of the trajectory of the storm, right, as the overall narrative, like the overall story, and the story here, I think, as it relates to this Iran conflict, I think the trajectory that we're on, as I've said for months now, is I think that the goal here is to start a war between Israel and Iran, and then take the exit ramp, use the cyclone, which I'll describe in a minute, to get Israel in this conditioned mindset where that they're going to fight Iran. This is their one chance. They're going to fight Iran no matter what, and then take the exit ramp and allow the storm under its own momentum to continue moving on without the U.S. involvement. And the cyclone itself is the schizophrenia. That's the psyop. And so, as I described in the news brief, let me pull up the correct one, is this one. And so, as I described it earlier this week, what President Trump does is he plays games with the Zionists. I don't think he does this to like wake up the normies or for the public's benefit. I don't think that's why he's doing this stuff. I think he's doing this against his enemies. And so here's how I described it. I said, for the patterns I've noticed, here's how the game works, the game that he plays. Trump baits the Zionists deeper into war by simultaneously occupying all sides of a narrative. He starts by putting out provocative rhetoric where he threatens Iran with sensational claims, such as, quote, bombing them back to the Stone Age, which gets the Zionists blood flowing and excited for conflict. Trump then claims that Iran is desperate to make a deal while insisting that the conflict is winding down and the deal may be imminent. Trump's claims of a deal achieve two things. First, it provokes Iran, who may be witting or unwitting actors in this ruse. We don't need them to be necessarily read in on what Trump's doing. Just understand the incentive structures and maybe have some key figures there that are at least understand what Trump's end game is, which is to make peace with them. So the first, it provokes Iran to deny claims of an imminent peace deal. That's the first thing they're going to do, because regardless of what's happening behind closed doors, this is a face-saving exercise, which Trump has talked about before, right? They have to do face-saving. It's an Eastern culture. All the Eastern cultures do this, where they're not going to just take it on the lip. They're gonna, Soleimani gets killed in January 2020. They're gonna call up Trump and say, "Hey, we're gonna fire some missiles into the desert. We're not trying to kill anybody. We just got to do a show of force, for face saving." Okay, so the face saving here, regardless of what's happening behind the scenes, is they're going to deny Trump of the narrative control. So they're going to deny that there's an imminent peace deal. Now, that might be true. There might be nothing happening behind the scenes, or there might be a peace deal already in place, but they're going to deny it. So as I write here, even if a deal is forthcoming, their denial in their minds ostensibly deprives Trump of narrative control, but more importantly, it incites anger in Israeli leadership, who see the denial as a desire by the Iranians to further pursue conflict. The second thing Trump's claim of a deal achieves is stoking anxiety in the Israelis that, let me see. Yeah, so stoking anxiety in the Israelis that their window of opportunity to wage war with Iran is closing. This induces the Israelis to accelerate their war plans while making every attempt to ruin the peace deal, which may not even be real to begin with. So I compare it to the movie Inception, which is the movie about, the layered dreams, a dream within a dream. This is layered psyops, a psyop within a psyop. It's a cyclone. Okay, so the example I give, when moments like this helicopter attack occur, which happened, last weekend, which could also be a complete fabrication. The helicopter thing may be real, it may not be real, but it provides President Trump with yet another opportunity to confuse the situation by once again occupying both sides of the forthcoming dialectic. He becomes both the pacifist and the war hawk, while also responding to the perceived aggression with a kinetic strike against Iran, a move which will only engorge the growing bloodlust of Netanyahu's Kahanist security cabinet. To that point, here is President Trump explaining to an inquiring and incredulous reporter that the helicopter pilots are fine and that a peace deal will be signed in 2 to 3 days.
It had to do with Lebanon, and it has to stop. We want to get it finished.
There's a report that an Army helicopter went down in the Strait. Can you give us an update on that? Are the soldiers okay?
The pilots are fine, yeah.
And what's
nobody
that,
injured.
What brought it down?
We are going to issue a report tomorrow, but the pilots are fine, yeah.
Did you say 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks?
2 or 3 days.
You'll be signing a peace agreement?
No, we have a good chance of doing it. We should be able to do it in 1 hour. If you want to know the truth.
What's the biggest sticking point right now?
Okay, so that was, I believe, from Monday. I believe that was Monday or Tuesday, and the other notorious like viral quote was that Trump said it's not a big deal. The shooting of the helicopter is not a big deal. We're still going to do a peace deal. Says this was after Trump put out a post promising a strong response, only to later tell a reporter from the Wall Street Journal that the helicopter attack by Iran, quote, wasn't a big deal, a comment which has since gone viral. In the same exchange, Trump explains why war would be counterproductive and that peace would be the best strategy to defeat Iran. So listen to what he says here.
If we go and bomb, which we can do very easily if we want, and we spend another 2 or 3 weeks bombing, they'll have nothing left whatsoever. But you won't have the Strait open for months. If we do the bombing, a lot of people are going to be killed. Who wants to do that? I don't. And we'll have a signed document that's actually stronger than doing the bombing. What has proven to be a very powerful thing is the blockade.
Okay, so as Trump says, he's like, we can go bomb the hell out of them, but that's not going to be productive. Like, we're not going to get a productive end to this by just bombing the shit out of each other over and over and over and over again. So then I go on to explain, I was like, this might sound very schizo. It is very schizo. It's a schizo strategy, but it confuses everybody. Nobody can figure out what the hell's going on, whether they are pro-Israel, anti-Israel, pro-war, anti-war, pro-Trump, anti-Trump. Nobody can figure out what's going on because, like I said, Trump occupies every single side of the narrative at all times and can switch his take from minute to minute. 1 minute he can say, we're going to bomb the hell out of them. The next minute he's like, yeah, but we're actually going to make peace. And nobody can wrap their arms around what his plans are. So to that point, here's Mark Levin getting really excited because Trump is talking about bombing the hell out of them. And he says, our fabulous military on the orders of our great POTUS is hammering Iranian positions now in response to the Iranian regime shooting down one of our helicopters. How much more delay and attack we will tolerate from this enemy. To be clear, this is exactly what Israel and its great leaders did the other night when the same enemy fired 11 ballistic missiles at its civilian population. And then some random person replied back and said, apparently Trump will tolerate a great deal more delay and attack from Iran, since in a call with the Wall Street Journal, Trump downplayed Iran's downing of a U.S. Apache helicopter, saying it wasn't a big deal, peace through weakness. So one person, Mark Levin, who has a preconceived bias of what he wants to see happen, a war with like an escalated war with Iran, right? The resumption of a war. He sees like the war side of Trump, right? This other person who's probably, I would imagine, anti-Trump, and views Trump as a weakling or bad or whatever, a bad leader. He sees this as weakness. He sees this as Trump, not doing the right thing or losing right to Iran, which is another narrative that's out there. It's like, pick your own adventure. People are going to see whatever they want to see. Trump is putting out all the different sides of the narrative, right? And therefore, nobody can latch on and say, this is exactly what's happening. So I write, nobody can really figure out what's happening. Trump is simultaneously promoting peace and war, escalation and de-escalation. And now Trump is openly questioning whether Netanyahu should even seek re-election, calling him a wartime prime minister, stroking his ego, while explaining that we are entering peacetime. What he is really doing is daring Netanyahu to shatter that peace and keep the war going. Israel keeps going deeper down the rabbit hole of war while Trump moves toward the off-ramp. As I said before, Trump is playing mind games with everyone at all times. So I think this was from which day was this? June 10th. So this is from Wednesday's Wednesday's Badlands news brief. So I wrote this take on Tuesday before there was any actual deal announced. It was just Trump saying, yeah, we're probably going to have a deal signed in a couple of days. You heard the reporter in that video. She was like, wait. Did you say 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 days? Like you must have meant weeks. And Trump said, no, 2 or 3 days. She's like, wait a minute, but they just blew up a helicopter and you just said we're going to bomb the shit out of them. Trump's like, yeah, it's all right. Like we're still going to get to peace. Like discombobulation, total and complete discombobulation. Okay, so then we can jump forward to see if we have this. So then the next day, like we get the the 24-hour news cycle after I wrote that take. Like Trump heightened his rhetoric, right? After saying that to the reporter, saying, yeah, we're going to have a peace deal in 2 to 3 days. Trump then comes out and says, we're going to bomb the shit out of Iran. He posts that to Truth Social. He says, we're going to bomb the shit out of them. He goes on Fox News and he talks about he calls it the most violated ceasefire in the history of the world. That's what he said. It's the most violated ceasefire in the history of the world. And then here is what he said during his Oval Office gaggle or appearance or whatever with the press on Wednesday.
Too long to get to a deal. I want to make sure I quote you correctly. You said that now they will have to pay the price.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that specifically?
Well, we're going to be attacking them very hard.
Resuming bombing?
Yeah, well, we are. Based on the helicopter, I guess we have the right to do that. They shot down a very incredible, actually an incredible machine. And at first they said they didn't do it. Then they admitted they did. It's sort of easy because we have the bomb. We actually have the bomb. Got very lucky that bomb didn't explode. That bomb was lodged in the helicopter. It didn't explode. It was on fire, but it didn't explode. Those two guys, they knew how to fly, but they got very lucky. And then we had the unmanned boat going very, very fast at speeds that you wouldn't want to go. That's why it's unmanned, I guess, because nobody can go in that. But
all right, so I bring this up in the take here, but I want you. This is like a 3-minute clip. We're 1 minute in. We're gonna play for 2 more minutes. I want you to listen to what Trump does here. This is how he goes into this mode sometimes, where he calls it the weave, right? This is what Burning Bright talks about, where he goes off script and he just kind of starts telling stories. And it's hard to know if any of this is like premeditated or if he's just making it up on the spot. I kind of think it's probably a blend of two, where he'll just kind of like make a comment and then he'll like back up and kind of like embellish on that one little comment, do a little side quest, come back to the original story, keep telling the story, do another side quest in a different direction. And before you know it, he's given like 5 different side quests in the story he's telling, giving all these details that are very superfluous, that aren't really relevant to the overall point he's trying to make, other than he's basically providing coloring, like supporting details to a story that without the supporting details maybe becomes less believable. Although if you stop and you listen to what he's saying, you're like, well, this kind of sounds kind of crazy. Like this is like the soft version of the professional wrestling promo, because you have the hardcore version where he's like, we're going to bomb the hell out of them. And it's very bombastic. It's very cartoonish. A lot of that comes in the written word with the caps locks on. And then you have this version of it, which is much more calm. He's being very calm when he says this stuff. He's being very charming. He's being very charismatic in a much more subtle way. But by providing all these little details, it makes it's the verisimilitude, that word that Burning Bright taught me. Like the story feels more like you're more inside the story. It feels more believable because of these details, which I don't think any of this is even real. But by him telling you this, it feels more real. So just listen to what he says as he goes down this path.
They rescued, so they're both.
So he's talking about the rescue operation with he says these unmanned boats, they're going at speeds, like ludicrous speeds, which that's a callback. He doesn't say ludicrous, but he says speeds you wouldn't believe. Back in the 2016 and 2020 campaigns, the meme wars, There was a meme, the Trump train travels at ludicrous speeds. That was one of like the earliest memes of the Trump campaign. And it just reminded me of that. Then he's about to talk about the rescue operation to save the pilots, right? He talks about how the bomb hit the helicopter but didn't explode. And the pilots are great. They're fantastic pilots, but they got lucky because the bomb hit them and it just didn't blow up. And that's how we knew, by the way, the bomb came from Iran, because it said Iran right on the side of the bomb. Just listen to what he says here.
At speeds that you wouldn't want to go. That's why it's unmanned, I guess, because nobody can go in that. But they rescued, so both people are, fortunately, the pilots are okay. No, look, I've been working with Iran for a number of months.
Okay, I've been working through the thicket of these weeds. He's wading you through. He's leading you through the weeds, and it's a little disorienting. It's a little confusing. It's like, what point is he making? He'll throw a bone in there, and that's the truth right there. I think that's the thread of truth that gets lost in the weeds, which is, I've been working with Iran for a number of months. And it's like, wait a minute, what? You've been working with Iran for a number of months? We haven't heard any of this, have we? Keep listening.
And they should sign their deal. It's a good deal. It doesn't give them the right to have a nuclear weapon. In fact, it totally prohibits them from ever having a nuclear weapon. And it was just tap, tap, tap. I don't know what they're doing. So they then shot at our helicopter, very expensive helicopter, by the way, but much more importantly, the two men, fortunately, they're okay. But an amazing rescue. If you ever get a clip, you won't believe the rescue, how cool it was. The equipment we have. Look, we have the strongest military in the world. And I gave them a break at the request of Pakistan. The Field Marshal and the Prime Minister of Pakistan are great. We stopped them from going to war with India. You would have had a nuclear war if it wasn't for me. But they became friendly to me, very friendly, and they're close to Iran, and they work, and they still are working on trying them to do what's right. But we want. We want a deal that's meaningful. We want a deal that works. We don't want to just have a Barack Hussein Obama deal, JCPOA, the worst deal. That was a path to a nuclear. It's the exact opposite. I like on television, they say, oh, they should have kept that deal. First of all, it was over. It was a short-term deal. But that.
Muted again. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know why that keeps happening. Hopefully it won't happen again. All I was saying there is that Adrian, appreciate your text. All I'm saying there is that Trump had to stop himself. He said Pakistan worked on the deal. Oh, actually, they're still working on the deal. He had to stop himself. He was speaking of the past tense, like the deal's already done. And he had to stop himself and say it keeps going.
Deal was a path to.
Let me back up.
Have a Barack Hussein Obama. They're close to Iran, and they work, and they still are working on trying them to do.
See, he had to catch himself. They worked. Well, they still are working.
What's right, but we want a deal that's meaningful. We want a deal that works. We don't want to just have a Barack Hussein Obama deal, JCPOA, the worst deal. That was a path to a nuclear. It's the exact opposite. I like on television, they say, oh, they should have kept that deal. First of all, it was over. It was a short-term deal. But that deal was a path to a nuclear weapon. This is a path against a nuclear. You can't have a nuclear weapon. His was a path to a nuclear weapon. They were developing during his administration nuclear weapon. If they had a nuclear weapon, there'd be no Israel, there'd be no Middle East, and they would have absolutely shot at us. So we'll see what happens. But we hit them hard yesterday, and we're going to hit them again hard today in case you miss it, in case you don't turn on your television set.
That's the part. That's the best part. In case you don't turn on your television set, he's telling you right there that this is all story. He's like, in case you don't turn on your television set, we're going to hit him again hard tonight. By the way, that didn't end up happening, right? He doesn't end up hitting him hard hard again. But in case you don't turn on your television set, we're going to hit him hard again tonight. It's coming.
And we'll see what happens with the deal. We were really close to a deal, but
we'll see what happens with the deal. Now, you'll note at the beginning, or maybe in the middle of that clip, he uses the term tap, tap, tap. He's like, they're just tapping us along. Iran is just tapping us along. And then we heard Hegseth make the same comment the very next day. This is, or maybe it was the same day. Maybe this is from Wednesday as well. So listen to what Hegseth says here.
As President Trump said, they've been tapping. You can see when someone's trying to tap on a deal. Instead, they're going to have tap bombs dropping on key facilities in Iran from the United States of America.
Now, this is a callback. Y'all may remember this. This is a callback to his interview, President Trump's interview with Barak Ravid, the Israeli journalist, from December of 2021, when he was talking about Netanyahu. Listen to this. This audio you're about to listen to is from December 2021, talking about trying to make a peace deal with Netanyahu. Trying to make a peace deal between Netanyahu and Palestine, and how Netanyahu treated that situation, that process.
Bibi Netanyahu, before the ink was even dry, to do a message, and not only a message, to do a tape to Joe Biden talking about their great friendship. They didn't have a friendship, because if they did, they wouldn't have done the Iran deal. And guess what? Now they're going to do it again. And if they do it again, Israel is in very grave danger. I was disappointed in Bibi, just on a personal basis. When we have an election that was a rigged election.
I'm sorry, I think that was the wrong clip. This is the clip I was looking for. Same interview, a different clip.
So, Benny Gantz, I really liked him a lot. Really? I thought he was great. He came to the White House, and he was somebody that, in my opinion, it would have been much easier to make a deal with the Palestinians.
Much easier than with Netanyahu, or much easier
than with Netanyahu? The Palestinians hate Netanyahu. They hate him with a passion. They did not hate guns. They didn't hate him.
And how did you find them on a personal level?
I liked him. I thought he was a really impressive guy. He loves Israel. I just didn't know what happened to him.
Yeah.
Because, I heard that that at a certain period of time, Bibi was going to leave and he was going to take over. All of a sudden, we're into a new election. I like the general a lot. I thought, in fact, I said to you, Jared, and David, if he became, if he became the guy, if he won, I think it would be a lot easier. No, I don't think Bibi ever wanted to make peace. And I say that, I think he just tapped us along. He just tap. No, we want to. I think with Bibi, peace. Now look, Bibi is Bibi. But I think Bibi did not want to make peace. Never did.
Yeah, so there you go. Netanyahu just tap along. And what's interesting is when he's sitting there pumping the tires of Benny Gantz, because back then Benny Gantz and Netanyahu for 3 or 4 years had been running against one another in various elections, which neither one could secure a majority after they would win the election. So for like 2.5 years, 3 years, Israel didn't have a government, a seated government. It was called the Israeli political crisis of 2018. And what's interesting is that we also get this, another callback to that same comment that happened right here. And this went very much like unreported because of, just the news cycle just goes very, very quickly. But right here, this is from June 10th, again, Wednesday. It says, does he want to continue? Trump questions Netanyahu's candidacy in upcoming Knesset elections. He's had an amazing career, Trump said. Does he want to continue? Because, he's a wartime prime minister. U.S. President Trump called into question whether or not Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would run for re-election in the upcoming Knesset elections, according to a Tuesday report from ABC News chief Washington correspondent correspondent Jonathan Karl, quote, he's had an amazing career. Trump told Karl on a phone call, does he want to continue? Because, he's a wartime prime minister. We will know very shortly when the war, we will very shortly win the war one way or the other, Trump continued. And he's a wartime prime minister. That's okay, he added, just like I'm a wartime president. On Wednesday, the Likud party responded to Trump's comments on Netanyahu's candidacy, saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu will run in the upcoming elections, and with God's help, he will win. Trump told Netanyahu not to escalate with Iran or else you could be left alone very soon. We covered this on Tuesday. The U.S. president also recently spoke to Israel's Channel 12, that's Barak Ravid, about the conversation he had with Netanyahu in light of tensions between Israel and Iran. So he's saying, basically what he's saying in that comment that he said to Jonathan Karl is, well, he's a wartime president and we're heading to peace. So he's great during wartime, but is he a peacetime president or a peacetime prime minister? I don't think so. So maybe it's time for Netanyahu to hang him up and ride off into the sunset. Remember, he can't do that because he's got 3 felonies in court waiting for criminal court waiting for him the minute he retires, no matter whether that's by his own hand or if he's forced into it through an election. So this is interesting. Trump he's baiting Netanyahu and being like, man, maybe it's time for Netanyahu to hang him up. And Netanyahu knows that Trump's right. He can't take the off ramp. He can't de-escalate because the minute he does, there's no reason for the Israeli people to support him anymore because he's the defender of Israel. If there's nothing to defend Israel from, then because we have a peace deal with with the Hezbollah, with Iran, with everybody, then there's no reason for Netanyahu to remain in office. So he's baiting Netanyahu to blow up the peace deal or just to barrel forward without that peace deal. And to that point, here is Netanyahu speaking about that situation. This is from, I believe this is from Tuesday. It looks like this is from Tuesday. So remember, in Israel, they have full transparency. They've had this for a long time with their cabinet meetings. They record the cabinet meetings. They put out, I know a stenographer puts out a written transcript. I believe they often have recordings of them as well. So there's full transparency. It's something I actually think it's great that they do that. Trump has started doing it with his own cabinet and his own cabinet meetings, bringing the press into the room and letting them film it, right, and film the conversation. And this is in Hebrew, so I'm just going to read the quote. You can see it right here. This is a screenshot from I-24 television in Israel, and it's all in Hebrew though. But the quote from Netanyahu is, it could be that we'll reach a situation where we have to confront the Iranians alone without backing from the U.S. with all the costs involved, armaments and global isolation. We don't want to get there, but we know we can get there. The chief of staff, Zamir, that's the head of the IDF, warned about the emerging agreement. Quote, as we see it right now, almost any agreement is a bad agreement. So you have the head of the IDF saying there's no way that we can accept any agreement that Trump does. And Netanyahu is saying it could be that we have to pursue this conflict by ourselves without Trump, without the U.S. support, accepting all the costs involved, which means not just the munitions and, the cost of the military costs of the war, the blood costs of the war, the soldiers' lives, but also the political cost, the global isolation. The world's going to hate us for doing this, but you know what? We have to do it. This is our destiny as the state of Israel, is to fight the state of Iran and defeat them. So we're going to pursue it with or without President Trump. Now, let's get back to Trump. Now, hold that what I just read in your mind, because I want to finish with Trump's psyops before we get to Netanyahu and the deal that is now being announced. So here's another example of President Trump. Let me see if I have this one. I think it's this one. Here's another example of President Trump telling you the truth in key moments, right? And to an incredulous audience, wait, what? Listen to what he says right here. This is from yesterday.
The strait is open, but the straits have been open for a number of months already, and you just didn't know about it. You as reporters weren't able to get it. I just announced yesterday that we brought a lot of ships through, and nobody knew about it. I guess we did a pretty good job, Peter, right? But we brought many, many ships across, and millions, hundreds of millions of barrels of oil were brought across. The strait is open, but the straits have been open.
Yeah, so this is the second time he made this comment. He made the comment, I believe, either on Wednesday or earlier on Thursday, where he said, "I'm telling you this for the first time. Like Iran doesn't even know this, but we did like in the dead of night. We did. We were sneaking oil out of the Strait of Hormuz the whole time, and nobody knew it. Nobody knew that we did this." To the extent that Congress actually, when they had the Secretary of Energy in there under questioning, they asked him about this. Let's see if I have that clip where they asked him about this, and they asked him to answer for Trump. So here's that. This is from Chris Wright. That's not the person. It was. I think it was Crockett. Wasn't it Crockett who said that? We'll play this clip. This might be relevant enough.
The reason I bring that up is because yesterday you just said that the Strait of Hormuz traffic was rising very meaningfully. Is that true? And what does meaningfully mean to you?
That is true. We are not talking overly about it, but this is using the U.S. military to increase flows of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz, and things are going well.
I'd like to talk a little bit more detail, though, at least more than the word meaningfully. Like, what would you consider meaningful? Like, are we talking about many ships? Are we talking about one ship? Because the IMF Port Watch seems to indicate that it hasn't actually increased meaningfully.
That would be incorrect. That data would be incorrect.
Okay, so you have data that shows that there's been a significant increase in the number of ships going through the Strait of Hormuz that would supply the rest of the world with oil.
That's correct.
And these are not Iranian ships. These are ships that would supply us and our allies with oil.
Okay, so here's the one I'm looking for. This clip right here is where he's asked about the comment that Trump made.
Tweeted in March that the U.S. Navy had successfully escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz to ensure oil remains flowing to the global markets. Was that true?
No, that was an error. It was not tweeted by me, but it was by my team that misunderstood something I said, but I take responsibility for it.
What did you say to the team that they misunderstood?
I gave a talk and in Colorado about the state of energy and what was going on in the Strait of Hormuz. I said we will restore flows of oil to the Strait of Hormuz using the U.S. Navy if necessary.
Makes this honest mistake. But the reason I bring that up is because yesterday you just said that the Strait of Hormuz traffic was rising very meaningfully. Is that true? And what?
Okay, so that was part of the other clip we saw. And Amelia Sykes is the person who asked this question. Okay. So here's her specifically asking Chris Wright about Trump's comments that actually we've been taking oil through the Strait of Hormuz the whole time.
Are you aware that the United States was taking millions of barrels of gasoline from Iran in the Strait of Hormuz?
By the way, she calls it gasoline at first, and then she calls it then she says gallons of oil. She says millions. She says millions of barrels of gasoline, and then she says millions of gallons of oil. She doesn't even know what she's talking about.
We are preventing the flow of Iranian oil through the Strait.
That is not the question that I just asked you. Were you aware that the United States has been taking millions of gallons of oil from the Strait of Hormuz?
Just not sure taking is the right word. We're preventing the flow of it.
Well, thank you. Mr. Chair, if I may, can I play some audio from some comments that President Trump made in the Oval Office?
Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out
let's suspend that,
barrels
please.
of oil. Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran until right now.
No.
Mr. Secretary, it seems like you didn't know about this either. So why would the United States be taking out millions of barrels of oil from Iran?
Well, it's essential that we prevent oil sales from generating revenue for Iran to spend to develop nuclear weapons and oppress
Mr. Secretary, I understand this might be an uncomfortable line of questioning and you don't want to do it, but you are not answering my question. So I'm going to ask you again, did you know that the United States was taking millions of gallons of oil from Iran?
I'm unaware.
So do you think that the president is lying based on the audio that you just heard? And I will send it to you in case you say you didn't hear it.
Oh, no, I do not think the president's lying. I think the president's talking casually about our efforts to stop the flow of Iranian oil.
And war is casual? Do you think?
Yeah, and then she gets into the semantics of like war being casual. But point is, he's like, I don't think president's lying when he says that. For months now, we've been getting conflicting stories, like where Iran will say, "Oh no, like we're bringing tankers in through the through the Strait of Hormuz, and then Trump and CENTCOM and the U.S. military come out and say, no, nobody's moving through the Strait of Hormuz. So is the Strait of Hormuz closed or is it not closed? I mean, the data shows that it's closed, but can that data be manipulated? I mean, can that data be showing something that's not actually happening? Is it possible that Trump is actually allowing some of this stuff to go through? Is it possible that Iran was telling the truth when it said that it was getting ships through? Again, it's hard to pin down exactly what the truth is here, but it's sowing that confusion and sowing that chaos that I think where Trump really discombobulates people, because now they're sitting here arguing over semantics of these things, and he can move forward with the next step in this. And so the next step, of course, is this peace deal. Now, everyone thought there was going to be this major attack. Like Mark Levin and all of them were very excited about it. As I put out, I said, look, Trump doesn't do that. He doesn't come out and say, I'm going to attack tonight at 10 o'clock. Like, be ready. He doesn't do that. If he's saying that, then you know it's not really going to happen. And of course, at the last minute, Trump decided not to do it. He puts out the post saying, because of these great conversations we're having with Iran, I've decided to cancel the attacks. We're going to hold off and see if a deal can be made. That, of course, sent Mark Levin and his friends into a tailspin, a complete tailspin. Let's see. And so before he cancels the attacks, here's the lead up to the attacks right now. Trey Yinst from Fox News.
I just spoke with President Trump, who is currently in the Situation Room with Vice President J.D. Vance, along with Special Envoys Kushner and Witkoff. The president giving new insight into what is taking place as we speak. There is an ongoing bombing campaign against the Iranian regime. The president tells Fox News that 49 Tomahawk missiles were used to hit targets inside of Iran, some of them as close as 40 miles from the Iranian capital of Tehran. The president said that U.S. fighter jets are also operating over the skies of Iran, taking out radar systems and air defense systems in the southwestern part of the country, close to the Persian Gulf. This is all taking place as the Iranians are trying to get the United States to stop the bombing campaign. President Trump told me that Iran called him tonight. Top Iranian officials and President Trump spoke directly, according to the commander-in-chief tonight, as the president was sitting in the Situation Room. And he told me that the Iranians asked them to stop bombing. And the president said to me, the bombing will stop shortly. I asked him what will happen if the Iranians do not sign an agreement that was put forward by American negotiators. President Trump said, quote, "We'll bomb the S out of them tomorrow night." And so the president is leaving the military option on the table if the Iranians are unwilling to sign this good faith deal that would ultimately open the Strait of Hormuz and ensure that they cannot advance a nuclear program toward a nuclear bomb. That is the bottom line here that President Trump has reiterated over and over again.
Okay, so the big disclosure here to Fox News, like as everyone's on pins and needles waiting for this bombing to start, is he's like, oh, Iran picked up the phone and called me. What, like, did they call a cell phone? I mean, did they call the White House? And they're like, hey, please don't do this. Please don't bomb us. Let's make a deal. So then now he's like saying, okay, I am speaking directly with Iran. What role is Pakistan playing then? Right? Like, I thought Pakistan was the go-between. I thought it was Pakistan and Oman was like where they were the mediators. Now Trump is telling us, oh, I'm actually just speaking directly to Iran. Something he said in the other clip too, where he said, you know, I've been working with Iran for months on this. Right. And then Netanyahu puts out where he says, and then now we're going to transition to, I'm going to play one more clip of Trump. Then we're going to transition to Netanyahu and the IDF and like how they're receiving all this and the diaspora, the Mossad media. So let me silence this. I'm going to read the Hebrew on screen. Netanyahu says, earlier today, I spoke with our friend, President Trump. President Trump believes there is a chance to leverage the achievements great of the IDF and the United States military in order to realize the war goals in an agreement that will protect our vital interests. Even with a ceasefire, we will continue to attack, both in Iran and in Lebanon. We are cutting off the missile program and the nuclear program. Then and continue to severely damage Hezbollah. Just a few days ago, we eliminated 2 more nuclear scientists, and the hand is still outstretched. We will protect our vital interests in every situation. So Netanyahu's saying before any sort of deal is announced, right? And there's kind of this talk of maybe there'll be an attack, maybe there'll be a deal. Netanyahu isn't quite sure. But he's saying even if there is a ceasefire, even if there is a deal, we're going to keep fighting. Israel's going to keep fighting. And again, like this is Trump doing the cyclone move, right? Where he's both escalating and de-escalating simultaneously. He's giving Netanyahu and the Zionists a bunch of anxiety because their window of opportunity is closing, right? So they need to barrel forward. He's also at the same time saying, well, maybe I will bomb the shit out of them, right? And the discombobulation leads to moments like this. This is from Mark Levin. Here's Mark Levin on his show the other night.
Now we have a country that wants to build nuclear weapons and blow us off the face of the earth. And I personally am getting sick and tired of people saying, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? What do you mean, why are we doing this? You think we just picked Iran out of a hat? They've told us what they want to do. They've killed Americans for half a century. They've tried to assassinate our president and other officials. They tried to assassinate Ivanka Trump. We're the United States of America. We're going to sit on our asses for this? What have we become? What have we become? Now, this war was begun. It's been a spectacular war. The casualties have been minuscule, but for every family and every casualty, it's everything. I understand that. But Hezbollah killed 241 Marines in their barracks. That's Iran. Hezbollah killed over 100 of our people in 2 embassies in Africa. I can go down the list. We lost more people by not taking on Iran than we are by taking on Iran. What have we become here? For me to take a position like this, I'm a warmonger, I'm Israel first. Don't put our kids on the line. Our kids are not on the line. We have no draft. We have no ground forces. I don't know how else. How much cleaner can you fight a war?
You mad, bro?
God, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You mad, bro? I mean, listen to how angry he is. And he's angry. I think he's frustrated with what like Trump's been doing. He's frustrated because he can't figure out what Trump's doing. He can't figure out whether Trump's about to restart the war or actually cut this deal. He's freaking out. He's freaking out, and it's the discombobulation of the cyclone that I was describing. And again, the momentum of the whole narrative from their perspective, the Israeli perspective, is they're going to go fight this battle no matter what. The question is the U.S. going to help them, which they need. They need the U.S. to help them, but they are getting themselves in the mindset that war no matter what, war no matter what, war no matter what. Then Trump comes in, and yesterday to Fox News says this.
It could be the greatest deal in history. They could wave the white flag of surrender. They could say, we surrender, we're finished, we've had it. The United States is the greatest power. Praise be to Allah. And they could do all of this. They could say it loud and clear, and the fake news would say it was a great victory for Iran. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It could be the greatest deal in history.
Yeah, and so Trump goes on Fox News and says, praise be to Allah. I mean, he was saying it in like a tongue-in-cheek context, but again, this is a humiliation ritual, in my opinion. This is he's been tweeting out, posting praise be to Allah multiple times. He did it like 2 days ago. He did it on Easter. Again, I think this is a humiliation ritual, not for Christians, but for the Zionists. Because if he was earnestly negotiating with these Iranian zealots, as they're described, would he really be going on like public communications and mocking their God, right? I mean, is that the way? Is that the best way to get them to the table to negotiate a deal? Like, who is he actually targeting when he says that kind of stuff, right? Is he targeting the Iranians or is he targeting the Zionists? I think he's targeting the Zionists. And to that point, the deal gets announced. Like the fact that there is a deal gets announced yesterday, like right after this appearance on Fox News. And then Mark Levin, again, just totally crashing out, does this. So he says, if all of this is from yesterday at 4:00, if all these governments have agreed on this deal, it's amazing how all these governments, because what Trump comes out and he says that all of these governments have agreed to it. He says that, it's all the Arab governments plus Pakistan plus Turkey, all the Muslim governments basically of the Middle East. But Israel is not involved in it. And Israel was very clear about that. I'll pull that post up too. But Mark Levin says, if all these governments have agreed on this deal, it's amazing how all these governments signed up so fast while we are announcing we'd be bombing ASAP. Since it's done, can we see it? And what's in the deal? Can we see it? I mean, he's asking that question to President Trump. He's doing it out in public, but he's like, okay, so wait a minute. You were just talking about bombing the shit out of Iran, right? And now we're being told that not only do we have a deal in place, but all these other governments are privy of the deal. We don't know what the deal says, and he's referring to Israel, the royal we, because if Israel knew it was in the deal, Mark Levin would know it was in the deal. He doesn't know. That means Israel doesn't know either. But yet all these other governments have said they're signed on the deal, and Trump's like, yeah, they've all signed on, like they're all cool with it. Well, wait a minute. Why are we not being included in this? We being Israel in Mark Levin's mind, right? Then he posts 2 hours later, he posts this. He says, it's difficult to discuss a memorandum of understanding that is not public, the precise terms of which we do not know. If it is done and will be signed in 48 to 24 hours, let's see it. And regardless of the terms, my understanding is that there is another 60-day period of negotiation. I assume that involves the particulars. My view has not changed because the Iranian regime is what it is. That is, it will violate whatever final agreement is signed, certainly after the end of the Trump administration. And I doubt any future president, certainly not a Democrat, will enforce it, which would require military action. We have the enemy where we want it. We may never again. That's important. We have the enemy where we want it. We may never again. It's their one chance. It was right to attack them. And in a few weeks' time, they were on their back. We hit the brakes for 9 weeks. First the Israelis, and then we went back to military action this week, and the regime was badly damaged beyond the original damage. Rather than destroy it, including arming the Iranian people, we have a memorandum of understanding and future negotiations. More later as we learn some actual facts. So he's freaking out because they don't know what's in the deal. And then Israel puts out some commentary. Mark Levin, puts out this. He says, then there's this. Iran's foreign ministry directly rejects Trump's new claim that quote, everyone in Iran has approved the deal, including the supreme leader, saying no one has accepted it and no agreement has been reached per FARS. Any agreement requires the U.S. to accept every demand of Iran. So Mark Levin's like, wait a minute. They're telling us that Iran's saying that we don't have a deal. So there's a little bit of hope. There's a little bit of hope there for Mark Levin and his buddies that maybe Trump's full of shit. Maybe there isn't a deal. Lindsey Graham, who has been radio silent. You go look at Lindsey Graham's X feed. He has been radio silent for like 10 days. And the reason is because he had a primary on Tuesday and President Trump endorsed him. And so rather than criticizing Trump and criticizing the idea of making peace with Iran, he just focused on campaigning. Right. And then he won his fake election on Tuesday. He put out a very put out video thanking President Trump for all the support, etc., reminding everybody that Trump is in his corner. And then he comes out yesterday and he says, I hope we have in fact reached a diplomatic solution to end the Iranian conflict that will meet President Trump's red lines and be fundamentally different from the JCPOA. That's the Obama-Iran nuclear deal. As in the past, any agreement reached with Iran related to their nuclear program will be presented to Congress for review and approval. I look forward to that process. So he's saying, yeah, Trump, you might think you have a deal with Iran, but not without congressional approval. Remember, Congress didn't declare war. So I'm not sure, do we need congressional approval? I'm not sure we do, because Congress never declared war on Iran. So therefore, I don't know if they're needed to negotiate peace. Somebody else can answer that. But he's saying, don't worry, Mark Levin, we're going to get our hands on this deal, and we're going to review it before anything is set in stone. This, by the way, is like a replay of some rhetoric that Lindsey Graham put out earlier this year, where he said, I really hope Trump isn't going to be like Obama 2.0. Like, it'd be a real shame if he became Obama and wussed out on this. Here's Mark Levin again, yesterday morning. Remember when Obama tried to put distance between Netanyahu and himself? Netanyahu warned that the Obama nuclear deal would be a disaster. He's a man worth listening to, especially when dealing with Iran. So then you have Laura Loomer crashing out, talking about how silly it is to negotiate a deal. This isn't an agreement. No one's ever going to go along with it. She posted that a few times. Senator Tom Cotton advanced a provision to the fiscal year 2027 Intelligence Authorization Act that would require the President of the United States to expand and enhance intelligence sharing with the government of Israel across a broad list of subjects. The provision would also bar the President from suspending or materially limiting that intelligence sharing except on the basis of a specific and identifiable national security concern determined by the President. This is treason, by the way. What he's saying is that anything the President knows, Israel has a right to know, and the President is not allowed to limit that information to Israel. Israel has a right to know anything our government knows at all times, and they're going to put that in writing, and that's what Tom Cotton is a traitor. Here's his AIPAC donation count. This is just AIPAC, by the way. This doesn't even include the unregistered groups and the other groups. 1.1 million over his career, over 1.1 million that they've given to Tom Cotton. Again, total discombobulation among these people. Like, they do not know what to make sense of this. And then Israel comes out and they make it clear that they have not been included in any of this. Not sharing screen. Oh, whoops. Okay, yeah, maybe I wasn't sharing the right screen. I think I'm sharing the screen, Adrian, but I appreciate the text. Okay, so we then get rhetoric from Israel that they... So this is from June 12th. This is from today. Israel, not part of the Iran deal. Final agreement will include terms on missiles, proxies. Netanyahu says. Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform that Israel was one of the several countries that which he consulted about the agreement, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, and the United Arab Emirates. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that the Jewish state would not be part of the emerging memorandum of understanding between the United States and Iran. But that he had received assurances from U.S. President Donald Trump about the terms of the final agreement. The Prime Minister's office issued a readout after a call between Netanyahu and Trump on Thursday afternoon. Quote, even though Israel is not a party to the memorandum of understanding, the Prime Minister expresses appreciation for President Trump's commitment that the final agreement at the conclusion of negotiations will include the removal of enriched material, the dismantling of enriched infrastructure, limits on missile production, and the cessation of Iran's support for its terrorist proxies in the region. It stated, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform that Israel was one of the several countries that was consulted about the agreement, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, and the UAE. It is not clear yet what, if anything, Iran has agreed to. While speaking to the press in the Oval Office earlier on Thursday, Trump was asked if Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei had approved the agreement. Quote, I understand the answer is yes, Trump said. Iran's semi-official Fars news agency reported after Trump announced the deal on social media that Iran had not approved the agreement, citing an informed source. Trump told reporters on Thursday that a deal could be signed soon, maybe this weekend. That claim is similar to his statement to reporters on June 3rd, where he said a deal might not happen, but if it happens, it could happen, like over the weekend. Asked why he was convinced that the two countries were now, in fact, close to a deal after previously claiming that the deal was imminent, Trump said it was because Iran had taken a pounding. Reporters gathered in the Oval Office for Trump to sign an executive order about commercial fishing, and a topic that he referred back to when explaining why Iran must not acquire a nuclear weapon. There won't be anybody to fish, Trump said. The fish will still be around, I guess. So yeah, Trump just like making light of all of that. And Trump actually made a comment, I believe, this morning about the nuclear material. And what's funny is, so Netanyahu puts out comments saying that, we're definitely going to have the nuclear material removed. And then Trump comes out and says, yeah, it's actually not going to get removed because it wouldn't be realistic. Where was that?
The war with Iran, and we're going to be.
Here's his talk of the settlement.
Big day. I know you'll never be satisfied, but that's okay. That doesn't bother me at all. We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents, which should get done over the next few days. Probably have a signing maybe in Europe, and it's a great thing. Stock market's up 1,000 points. That means they like the deal. See, that means they like the market goes down. That means they don't like the deal. But it's been up. Oil's dropped. Oil will start coming down to, I think, even lower than it was before. We had
Officials telling Fox Iran's nuclear material will be destroyed and removed. Its nuclear program will be dismantled. None of their sanctioned money will be released until they carry out the terms of the deal. The Strait of Hormuz will be open, and Iran will not provide any funding for terrorist groups.
just had a big day.
Yeah. So
I know you'll.
So again, he's like he says that there's going to be a deal signed this weekend in Europe, and we'll get to that in a second. And this one is where he says, so here's the Center for Strategic International Studies. Here are the options that Trump has. And he talks about, you can transfer it to Russia. You can go and get it yourself. You can have Russia get it. I mean, you can have Iran get it out. But Trump, I believe, let me see if I have it right here. I know Bannon was talking about it this morning on his show. He said that the nuclear dust is going to stay where it is because it's buried, several stories underground. Nobody can get to it. It's impossible to get to it. Nobody's ever going to find it. So we're just going to leave it where it is. I think that was the latest that I saw this morning. Okay, so today, again, we get the announcement of an imminent deal. The deal's been signed, or the deal's been agreed to. It hasn't been signed yet. It's going to be signed, I think, this weekend. We then get reports that four C-17s have taken off from Israel to fly to Geneva, right? And in Geneva, they're going to meet potentially. And I think Trump said that J.D. Vance is going to be sent to meet to sign the deal on behalf of the United States. And this whole time, by the way, the entire time, you have Iran denying that a deal's going to happen. Iran's like, yeah, there's no deal, no deal at all. There's no deal. Then all of a sudden, we get the Iranian foreign minister saying, a deal has never been closer. Here's the deal. So Iranian foreign minister Abbas Araghchi said Friday that an agreement with the U.S. to extend the ceasefire, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and launch negotiations on Iran's nuclear program has never been closer. Oh, isn't that interesting? So all of a sudden, we went from there's no even talk of a deal to now we've never been closer to actually signing the deal. Okay, this is from Barak Ravid. It says Araghchi's comments on X were the most positive yet from Tehran about the prospect for a deal in the coming days and appeared designed to prevent the deal from collapsing amid a battle to shape the narrative around it. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, one of the key mediators between the U.S. and Iran, wrote on X that an agreed upon text of the peace deal has been reached, and Pakistan was working with parties on the next steps. President Trump, who lashed out earlier on Friday over reports in Iranian state media about the contents of the deal, told Axios in a short call he considered Araghchi's post very positive. Trump said he demanded a public clarification over the state media reports, which claimed Iran stood to receive billions of dollars in frozen assets immediately after signing the agreement. Trump also claimed Iran had privately apologized for putting out false information. It's unclear how any such message was conveyed. The president said he still thinks a deal could be signed over the weekend or maybe on Monday. Okay. So what ends up happening, let me just clarify what So C-17s take off, 4 C-17s. That's reported by Barack Ravi. It's reported by Reuters. This is a signal that like these are military planes going to Geneva to prepare for the arrival of JD Vance, right? It's like, I guess, like the advanced team, security team. Signal that we actually are going to see a meeting in Europe potentially. Then we get Iran state media putting out, here's what the deal looks like. Because remember, Mark Levin is sitting there saying, what does the deal look like? What does the deal look like? So this is from the Clash report. New details of a 14-point draft Iran-U.S. memorandum. So here are the 14 points. This is from early this morning. Immediate and permanent ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon. U.S. commitment not to interfere in Iran's internal affairs and to respect Iran's sovereignty. Full lifting of the naval blockade within 30 days. U.S. commitment to withdraw its forces from areas surrounding Iran. Reopening of the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days under Iranian arrangements. Suspension of sanctions on Iranian oil, petrochemicals, and related exports with full access to the resulting revenues. U.S. and its allies to provide reconstruction plans for Iran worth at least $300 billion. That's something that's been floated around for weeks now. That was Jared Kushner's idea, allegedly. A 60-day negotiation period to reach a final agreement on nuclear issues and the complete removal of U.S. primary and secondary sanctions, as well as related UN Security Council and IAEA measures. It's the International Atomic Energy Association, I believe, or agency, I believe is what that stands for. Iran, next point is Iran reaffirms its NPT, the commitment not to develop nuclear weapons. That's the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Israel, by the way, has never signed. During negotiations, the U.S. will not deploy additional forces to the region or impose new sanctions. That's a 60-day period, meaning the U.S. is committing not to send any more troops to the Middle East. It says during negotiations, release of the $24 billion in frozen Iranian assets during the 60-day negotiation period, with half made available before talks begin. Establishment of a monitoring mechanism to oversee implementation of this agreement. The final agreement will be endorsed by a UN Security Council resolution. Final negotiations will begin only after the release of half of Iran's frozen assets, suspension of oil sanctions, and lifting of the naval blockade. The final deal will focus solely on uranium enrichment, enriched material, sanctions relief, and Iran's economic reconstruction. Iran's missile program and support for resistance groups are excluded from the agenda. Okay, so that's what goes viral this morning. Trump then takes the Truth Social. So remember, we went from Iran denying that there was even a deal in the works to Iran suddenly saying, oh yeah, like we're about to sign a deal. And then Iran putting out, here are the terms of the deal, which are different from what Israel and Mark Levin and them have been expecting, because the missile program is off the table, according to Iran, as is the support for proxy groups in the region, like Hezbollah specifically. That then provokes Trump to put out this. The terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. Very dishonorable people to deal with. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Amazing. Also, their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Hormuz Strait is totally unacceptable. They better get their act together and fast. President Donald J. Trump. So again, this is the cyclone, right? As we're de-escalating and it looks like there's going to be a deal because Iran says there's going to be a deal. We have the terms of the deal that are out there. Trump now steps in and says, no. Those are not the terms that we agreed to. We didn't agree to these terms. This is fake news. And so now it's like, well, wait a minute. Is there actually going to be a deal now? We don't know. And so then, like, again, like this is daylight. Trump's leaving hope. And if you go back and you look at the art of war, if you go back and you read what Sun Tzu says about the art of war, Sun Tzu says when you are pursuing an enemy, when you have an enemy surrounded and you are closing in on the enemy, there's two strategies you can take. Number one, you can go for total annihilation of the enemy. But he actually says that's the wrong move, because if the enemy knows that this is it for him, that he's now fighting to the death, he's going to dig in and he's going to fight to the last man. And that means he's going to kill many of your soldiers. You're going to take huge losses trying to totally annihilate the enemy. Instead, what Sun Tzu says you're supposed to do is you're supposed to leave a small path to exit and basically encourage the enemy to leave through that path. And then you control that path, right? And if you then want to ambush him during his retreat, or if you just want to let him go, right? And maybe that would be the best move, and to avoid a fight where you have to take losses, because as Sun Tzu says, the discerning general never has to lose a single person in order to win a battle. That's what Sun Tzu says. So what Trump's doing is he's leaving a little daylight here for Israel. Israel's going to take this daylight, and they're going to say, okay, we have daylight here. This deal is not finalized. We have the opportunity to blow this thing up. And that leads to them talking about war with Iran. So we have then the foreign minister, Katz. Israel's foreign minister urges Trump to safeguard Israel's interests during negotiations with Iran. Katz stresses that Israel will not withdraw from the security zones in Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and the northern West Bank. So they have no intention of de-escalating their fights with their immediate neighbors. And then he puts out this post where he says the U.S. president is currently leading toward an agreement with Iran out of a view of American interest, including the shared interest with Israel to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. And we expect him to uphold this principle with additional principles in the realm of missiles and terrorist proxies. So he's addressing the fact that Iran claims that those are off the table. Together, we have inflicted severe blows on Iran that have set back its capabilities by many years. Israel must ensure that in the future as well, we will have the ability to act independently to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I have instructed the IDF to prepare accordingly. Israel will not withdraw from the security zones in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. The IDF will continue to defend our borders and our citizens from the peak of Mount Hermon. I told you they were going to go for Mount Hermon, the mountains of Lebanon, and the areas of our land in the Samaria region, and most of that's the West Bank, and most of the territory of Gaza, against the threats posed by jihadist forces and organizations as a central lesson from the events of October 7. The IDF will not withdraw from the terrorist camps in northern Samaria, that's the northern West Bank, which have been evacuated of residents, and if necessary, the operation will be expanded to additional terrorist camps. Our security doctrine is sharp and clear. We act against both near and distant threats and strive for decisive outcomes rather than in compromises and concessions. Much is at stake in this period, and we are determined to continue leading a firm security policy that will prevent harm to our security achievements and will not endanger our ability to fight against the Shia axis of evil led by Iran and the Sunni axis of evil led by the Muslim Brotherhood. I wish to express great appreciation to the IDF command for their major achievements and to our heroic soldiers in the regular forces, standing army, and reserves for the heroic battle on behalf of Israel's security, and to the residents of the North for their heroic steadfastness that gives the IDF the strength to continue defending their security. I send a big hug to the bereaved families who've lost most of what precious to them, and wish a speedy recovery to all the wounded in body and soul who have devoted themselves to defending Jewish lives and the state of the security of the state of Israel. So then Apache puts out some comments, and this is coming from the Clash report. He says the Strait of Hormuz is without a doubt under the sovereignty of Iran and Oman. There is no international waterway in the Strait of Hormuz. For many years, this waterway was open to all ships. Iran and Oman ensured its security and provided services. Until now, all services were free of charge. However, the future management of the Strait of Hormuz will not be like the past. No one can challenge Iran and Oman's sovereignty over the strait. The management of the Strait of Hormuz will not return to the pre-war system. He goes on, fees will be charged for the services in the Strait of Hormuz, and these services will no longer be free. This important matter has been confirmed. Payment of fees is required. And then he continues, according to the memorandum of understanding, if it is signed, Iran's frozen assets will be released. None of our assets will be allowed to remain frozen again. A reconstruction plan has been envisaged to compensate Iran for the damage it has suffered. Let's see. And before I go on to the Department of Energy, he says, Arakchi, some other comments from him. He says, The final agreement hasn't been reached yet. If it is finalized, I promise to explain every single clause. An agreement includes 2 stages, and we have moved the nuclear issue to the second stage. I think that's the 60-day period that we're talking about. We will never leave Hezbollah and Lebanon alone, and the end of the war will also encompass Lebanon and all other fronts. In this agreement, the United States will state in writing that it respects Iran's sovereignty. The memorandum of understanding includes the nuclear issue, sanctions relief, reconstruction, and blocked frozen funds. If we are going to yield to threats of attacking our infrastructure, we would have done so earlier. We sent a message to the other side that threats have the opposite effect, and if they want to move toward a war, we are ready. This agreement has opponents, and at the forefront is the Israeli regime, which is looking for pretexts and opportunities to undermine it. Ending the war in the agreement also means Israel's withdrawal from the occupied areas in southern Lebanon, and we have stated this explicitly to the other side. The United States' nuclear-related demands in this stage were absolutely unacceptable to us. We are dealing with people in the United States who do not honor their commitments. We must prevent them from reneging on their obligations. The difference this time, compared with previous agreements, is that we have not yet reached a final agreement. This is only the first step or first phase. If the agreements reached in the first phase are not implemented, we will not proceed to the second phase. We should expect various problems and complications in the other side's implementation of the agreement. And then a U.S. official says, U.S. military planners are discussing contingency plans to help secure and remove Iran's enriched uranium if a nuclear deal is reached, according to U.S. officials. The preliminary plans would involve Department of Energy specialists supported by U.S. troops and other agencies locating, securing, and transporting Iran's nuclear materials. Officials stress that no operation has been approved and that the discussions are part of routine military planning, according to CBS News. So the MSM is jumping in and being like, well, we got to get this nuclear material. And the rhetoric I'm hearing is that that's not necessarily going to be the case, that we're just going to leave it be. Trump's like, we're just going to leave it there. You know, nobody's ever going to get their hands on it anyway. Yeah. And so let's see. Yes, the biggest. So, as Barack Ravid has reported, the biggest discrepancy between the Iranian and U.S. claims around the deal is over what happens to Iran's billions of dollars in frozen funds. Iran claims money will be unfrozen immediately, and the U.S. says it will only happen in return for nuclear concessions. Vice President Vance insisted that the economic benefits would only flow if Iran meets its obligations, and criticized those who were attacking the deal based on anonymously sourced social media posts. I think he's throwing shade there at the Mark Levin Mossad media group. Shahbaz Sharif says that so it's being called the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding. Islamabad meaning the city in Pakistan has never been closer. Pending its finalization, the media should refrain from entering speculation about its content. In line with our responsible and transparent approach, all details will be shared with the public in due course. That's from Arachi. That came in response to Trump's post about what was being leaked to the media. And then Shahbaz Sharif, the Pakistan prime minister, said that the actors who want to sabotage the peace deal were conducting a misinformation campaign, but peace has never been as close as it is now. So they're basically telling you that the media, I think working with Israel, are trying to disrupt this thing. They see daylight, the daylight that Trump is leaving them. And so they're exposing them. They're sticking their neck out. They're trying to exploit this daylight that they see between Trump and Iran and try to confuse the situation and frustrate people and basically get somebody to walk away from the table. All right. And then Trump is kind of leaning into that by putting out a post based on media reporting that he's reading when I think he probably knows better. But again, this is just Trump doing the cyclone. He's sitting there doing escalation and de-escalation. He's discombobulating everyone involved. And the net effect of all of this is, I think, going to be a U.S.-Iranian deal with Israel fighting Iran by itself. All right, so let's see. Let's take a break. We'll come back and reset, and we will talk about this Ukraine biolab thing. Geopolitics with Ghost.
What is that?
This is a smoking hot manly can. We got the Crawdads Classic 3-pepper gourmet hot sauce, the sweet and spicy pickles. Oh yeah, the ghost pepper peanuts. Go ahead, have a handful.
Ghosts aren't even real, dude.
Yeah, I love these cans. Kids got it for me for Father's Day.
Yeah, I'm just gonna use your bathroom real quick.
Yeah,
bathroom
dude.
stuff, you know.
Dude, you all right?
Yeah, man, I'm great, man. Get another beer?
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
Everybody saves.
Everybody.
Even me.
Especially you.
You mean I just have to use a promo code to get the discount?
BB truly is an idiot.
Hi, fellas. What year is it?
Soft disclosures for everybody.
All right, welcome back to the Apache Ghost. We're going to try to get through another probably 30 minutes of content here. Before we do, let's real quick talk about GART 12, because we have that coming up, man, like less than 2 weeks now. We're heading back to Deadwood, June 25th through 28th. Hope everyone's going to join us for the Great American Restoration Tour. This is the town that we take over every year. This will be our third time going. It's the town adjacent to Mount Rushmore, the famous town from the HBO show Deadwood, cowboy town. And yeah, this is like our home base, and we have a lot of fun there. This is normally like we get a huge crowd here at Deadwood, and I don't think there's any cap on how many people we can have there because the facility there is enormous. So head to badlandsmedia.tv/events. I'm sure there probably will be single day passes available. If you can't get there in person, make sure you sign up for a virtual ticket because there will be a lot of, extra bonus content beyond the normal curriculum. So again, badlandsmedia.tv/events. Look forward to seeing everybody there. That's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so we're going to transition to Ukraine, but I have an interesting bridge to get us there that involves, of course, Israel, but Turkey. So as I wrote about in the news brief. This wasn't really like a specific story. I mean, there's a bunch of smaller stories that I kind of pieced together. But my headline in the news brief was Erdogan and Netanyahu exchange threats as Turkey falls into Israel's crosshairs. And the various headlines there were this one: Erdogan, Israel strikes on Lebanon and Syria threaten Turkey. And then Netanyahu responding to Erdogan and saying that Erdogan is an anti-Semitic dictator who supports Hamas after Erdogan had condemned these strikes. Now, let me play the clip of Erdogan speaking at the Turkish Knesset. This is what started this whole thing.
Netanyahu.
So he says, this is all in Turkish, so I'm going to mute it and I'm going to read the English version, English subtitles. He says, Netanyahu and his criminal networks attacks on Syria and Lebanon have reached a point where they threaten not only these two brotherly countries, but also Turkey. We will not tolerate any attack but by our brothers against any attack of our brothers, by our brothers against our brothers. Now these people, the translation here is a little awkward. Now these people are coming, have henchmen. Let me see. Now these people and their henchmen are coming out, making threats here and there, targeting Turkey. He's talking about Naftali Bennett saying Turkey's next. Turkey's the next Iran. You don't need to say this. We already know your intentions, your aims, and your goals very well. He's referring to the Greater Israel Project. We see very clearly what you are pursuing. We are well aware of the ultimate goal of the promised land delusion. So again, with God's permission, we will never allow this. Okay, so, and then everyone cheers. So he's referring to the two things. Number one, the Greater Israel Project, but then also these like veiled, they're not really that veiled, they're pretty open now. The threats that multiple Israeli leaders, not just the Netanyahu security cabinet, but also Netanyahu's opposition, Naftali Bennett, has said, our intention is to fight Turkey. Turkey is ultimately going to need to be taken care of. They're the next Iran. So once we're done fighting Iran, we're coming after you, Erdogan. We're coming after Turkey. And I will remind you, a few months ago, we covered on this show the security agreement that Netanyahu had signed with Greece. Do you remember that? The Netanyahu-Greece security agreement. They started doing joint naval exercises in the Aegean Sea. And we'll look at the map because remember, we love geography here. So this is from December 22nd. Joint declaration of the 10th Trilateral Summit of Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. So Cyprus is the island that is between, well, I'll pull it up on the map. But Cyprus is traditionally like a Greek island, right? But it's its own independent nation now. And Israel, or not Israel, but I believe the British have a air base on Cyprus that they let the IDF use. And the north part of Cyprus is Turkish territory. So they have like territory on the island that is considered Turkish from the Ottoman Empire days. And Cyprus, of course, is also, I think, as I understand it, a big hub for money laundering. They have pretty favorable banking laws that allow for that. So they did this 10th Trilateral Summit, Israel, Turkey, and Cyprus. And basically, there was, it says, we iterate the importance of President Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan, and then talked about emergency response cooperation. We agreed to establish a trilateral working group on emergency preparedness and response, ensuring rapid and effective mutual assistance in natural disasters. They also extended this to security. They did some naval exercises. It says we welcome a recent joint statement on the 3+1 energy ministerial in Greece in November 2025 with the participation of the United States and the commitment to promoting energy security and the cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean, including through the Eastern Mediterranean Energy Center as a key to regional strategic stability and resilience. Now, I think this has something to do with the gas fields that are out in the Eastern Mediterranean that are off the coast of Lebanon, off the coast of Israel, off the coast of Gaza. Cyprus has claim to some of this. Lebanon has claim to some of it. Gaza was awarded recently, I think in 2020, claim to one of those gas fields. They have not developed anything. They're prevented by Israel from developing any sort of oil rig or infrastructure. And then, of course, Israel has, they already have infrastructure rigs out there for harvesting this natural gas. Now, I think that what we're going to see, and I'll read Netanyahu's response real quick to what Erdogan said. Netanyahu says the anti-Semitic dictator Erdogan, who is committing genocide against the Kurds, supports the Hamas terrorist organization, oppresses his own people, and imprisons political rivals, is the last person who can lecture the state of Israel on morality. The state of Israel and the IDF, the most moral army in the world, will continue to take forceful action against Iran and its proxies, which threaten the Middle East and the entire world. So President Trump was asked about this situation the other day. I think this is from Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Here's what he said. They were like, what do you think about this Erdogan-Netanyahu fight?
I have two questions. First of all, Turkish President Erdogan keeps threatening Israel. Do you think there's a chance of a conflict between Israel and Turkey? And will you sell F-35 to
Well,
Turkey?
as you know, he's a very good friend of mine. And we've worked very well together. I like him a lot. I'm not supposed to say that because the press will say, oh, he likes Erdogan. No, he's a hell of a leader and a strong person, very strong person. I haven't heard that at all. If I did, I'd call him, and I think I'd make sure that things were fine. I don't think that will happen with Turkey, not as long as I'm president, because he respects me and I respect him. But beyond that, we have a good friendship. So, we'll see.
Yeah, so that's Trump's take. Trump loves Erdogan. And he was specifically asked, what do you think? Like, are you going to sell them F-35s? Well, we already sold them the F-35s. They paid for them during Trump's first term. We brought the pilots over to the U.S. We trained the pilots on how to fly the F-35s. We trained the maintenance crews on how to repair the F-35s. And my understanding is that I think 2 F-35s have made their way to Turkey. I don't know about that definitively, but from reading all the documents and the timeline, it seems like they have 2 F-35s already, but I could be wrong about that. The question, basically what ends up happening is after they pay for the F-35s, Congress blocks the transfer of these planes to Turkey, citing Erdogan's relationship with Putin and saying, if we give Turkey these planes, Russia is going to get the technology, and then Russia is going to use that technology against us. And because Russia's, our greatest enemy of all time, we can't allow that. But of course, Russia is going to become our closest ally, I think. So none of this is going to matter. Here's what I think Netanyahu is going to do. Or here's what, let me just put it this way. Here's what I would do, or what I would think about doing if I was in the Israeli military, strategizing for them. I would think about doing a trilateral alliance, like a trilateral agreement between Greece and Ukraine, and creating a 3-way alliance against Turkey. Because Ukraine and Turkey, while Ukraine needs to play nice with Turkey because of Istanbul, if they want to get access to if they want access to the ocean at all, they got to play nice with Turkey. Okay. But Turkey and Russia are very cozy. Ukraine has already done aggressive moves against Turkey. I'm pretty sure they sank one of their ships, right? And then apologized for it. They definitely have been doing aggressive action against Turkey already. And that's because of Turkey's relationship with Putin, Turkey's relationship with Russia. Greece and Israel have already been doing joint naval operations in the Aegean. The Aegean is right here where you see the word Athens. That's where the Aegean Sea is. That's like ancient Greek mythology, ancient Greek history. It all takes place right here in the Aegean Sea. I think if Israel can get Greece, because Greece and Turkey have an ancient feud. It's one of the oldest feuds out there because of the Byzantine Empire, which was, the remnants of the Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire was the Byzantine Empire, which was modern day Turkey, modern day Greece, modern day Bulgaria. You see it right there. And then, of course, after the Fourth Crusades in the 12th century, which was a Christian on Christian crime, the Christians ransacked Constantinople, modern day Istanbul, and weakened the Byzantine Empire, which stood for 1,000 years. 1,000 years, a Christian empire. It was a Greek Christian empire. They prevented the caliphates from entering Europe from the east, and that forced the caliphates to go across North Africa and into Spain. Right, this is in the the 700s, and then they had to the caliphates fought at the Battle of Tours, I believe, and that was when Charles the Hammer Martel united all the tribes of France and then met them at Tours in France and defeated the caliphate, drove them back. Had he not done that, Europe would have been speaking Arabic and praising Allah. Basically saved Christianity, saved European civilization with that battle. And that's the story of Jon Snow, because Charles the Hammer Martel was a bastard who had no right to his father's throne, and spent his whole life fighting wars against all these tribes in France, the Franks. And then he went and united all of his enemies together under one banner, because he said, we've hated each other our whole life, but now we got a common enemy. And that common enemy is coming to kill all of us. So we need to join forces and go fight the enemy. That's the story of Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. And because of that, saves Europe from the caliphate. His grandson, so his son Pippin, then has a son, and that son, which is because Charles the Hammer Martel, even after doing that, was still told, this guy's not royal blood. He's a bastard. He can never be the king. However, his son, Pippin, was given favorable treatment. And then his grandson, who is like one generation removed from Martel, is anointed by the Pope to restart the Roman Empire, which they called the Holy Roman Empire. And that was Charlemagne. So Charlemagne is the grandson. You probably heard of him. He's the grandson of Charles the Hammer Martel. So anyway, that's the story of Islam versus Christianity in Europe. And the reason that happened is because of the Byzantine Empire here. So when the Ottomans, who came from Central Europe, remember Kazakhstan, Mongolia, we've talked about those places, they come all the way from over there, the Ottomans do, and they settle right here where you see Ankara, right? Tiny little tribe. This is like in the 1100s. And then over the course of like 70 years, they proliferate, they become very big. After the weakening of Constantinople, they put together a group and they go in and they take Constantinople from a weakened Byzantine Empire. They turn it into to Istanbul. They convert the Hagia Sophia, the largest interior volume in the world, one of the biggest churches in the world, into a mosque, and they start the Ottoman Empire. That's where the Ottoman Empire starts. That feud is now the Christian Greek nation and the Islamic Turkish nation, now the Ottoman nation, now Turkey. That's the origin story of their feud. So they have hated each other ever since. And so Greece would be a very key ally for Israel to get involved against Turkey. And if they can get Ukraine and Greece, because Ukraine's against Russia, if they can get Greece against Turkey, they can open up a new front in the West. The last thing that Israel needs is another ground war. That's the last thing they need. They are stretched way too thin to afford another ground war against Turkey. So I think what they're going to do, or what I would do, is start a naval conflict using Greece's navy. Greece is a NATO country, right? So Greece and Turkey fighting one another is not going to trigger Article 5, at least as far as I know it won't. If Israel attacks Turkey, that triggers Article 5, then Israel's at war with all of NATO. If Greece attacks Turkey, that's different. It's a totally different animal. That gets Europe in the war, by the way. That gets Europe in the war in the Middle East, okay? And then Ukraine, being the largest nation in Europe, would be a really good ally to have. Remember, they had that fight about the Russian fertilizer that was being shipped to Israel. Israel turned the ship away and said, nope, we're not gonna offload this fertilizer. So that's a signal to me that they're trying to maintain the relationship with Ukraine. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. It's really late in the game for this to happen. But if I were Netanyahu, I would look into this. This is what I would probably do. So got to keep an eye on that. Now let's get to Ukraine, because the Ukraine news is Tulsi Gabbard declassifies evidence of U.S.-funded global biolab network across 30-plus countries. Now, this is a story that's been out for a few years. From what I've heard, I've been told, before I was a part of like Badlands, there was We the Media. right? And they had a whole private chat, and they were all looking into this. Just Human, Burning Bright, all of them. And they turned up all this stuff back in like 2022, 2023. Didn't make a lot of it. They were like, yeah, this is interesting stuff. Don't know if it's real or not, but it's an interesting storyline. But they put all this research together. Didn't really end up publishing anything with it. And then somebody from that group did run with it and then blocked everybody else. And the rest is kind of history. And I'll let you figure out who that person is. But they've amassed a pretty large following for themselves. But it was off the research of others in that group. Anyway, now we're getting that confirmation from Gabbard. We already knew this from Russia. This isn't like breaking news because Russia has told us about this, right? Russia has told us about this for a while. They've been talking about this in the Russian parliament for years. They've been doing stories about how they've been accusing the West of funding 40 biolabs. Now we know that Tulsi Gabbard says that they have. Here's the press release. Okay, it says that after months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, Director of National Intelligence, DNI Tulsi Gabbard is revealing new evidence of longstanding United States government funding for more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. These biolabs include labs in Ukraine, which may be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war. For example, the intelligence community previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to outstanding threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. The newly declassified evidence can be found here. We'll open up and look at what that is. Until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories has been knowingly withheld from the American people. The information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by powerful people, falsely claiming that they do not exist and accusing anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Many of these U.S.-funded government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, in some cases to include dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. President Trump understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people, which is why he took decisive action on May 25th, 2025, signing Executive Order 14292 to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Quote, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact, research on dangerous pathogens and biolabs can have politicians, so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, and entities within the Biden administration's national security team lied to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs and threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. ODNI will continue to work closely with partners across the government to identify where these labs are, what pathogens they contain to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world, said DNI Gabbard. DNI Gabbard issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection of these laboratories and facilities overseas. This directive is already providing new details on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities, raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding these supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. So 120 biolabs in 30 different countries. This is a massive scandal. This is a crime against humanity funded by our government. And you know who's at the center of this whole thing? Is what is it? Waiting for this thing to load. At the center of this whole thing is it Rosemont Seneca? No, Black & Veatch. Black & Veatch, which is a company that is connected to Hunter Biden. Because I believe it's connected to Rosemont Seneca, if I'm not mistaken. I got to go back and go down that rabbit hole again. This isn't like, there's not a ton of stuff here. But it is, they mentioned anthrax. As of early 2010s, IECVM, which is the Institute of Experimental and Clinical Veterinary Medicine in Kharkiv, probably houses at least some of the dangerous pathogens and almost certainly remains vulnerable to longstanding Russian information operations, seizure, or damage. The institute, which was founded in the 1920s and may have had Soviet biological warfare ties, specializes in veterinary medicine, virology, and toxicology, according to military reporting and Ukrainian documentation. This is where it gets interesting, is right here. These maps. Look at these maps. Okay, so you can see on Ukraine where like they're showing these labs located. The colored shapes are human. Anything that has a colored shape, where it's not just white or gray, that is a human trial, like a place where they're testing on humans, and that's pretty much everywhere. Right. The worst one that looks like is in Odessa, because you got human, animal. You have unknown. It looks like you have biological weapon storage. That looks like that's happening in Odessa. But Kharkiv is one that really stands out because, remember, you get this guy who came out, this Russian soldier that went viral. I think it was in 2023. It was either 2022 or 2023, who talked about finding one of these places, or finding a facility in Kharkiv where like children, like body parts from children were there are body parts everywhere, and there were children chained up in the basement. And he's like they were being treated like animals, just butchered like animals. I don't know if that's what this is, but a lot of the stuff the Russians were talking about over the years is more and more coming true and being confirmed by our government. Again, I believe Marco Rubio got Victoria Nuland to admit to this during the Biden administration, during a congressional hearing. She admitted that we do have U.S. funded biolabs in Ukraine. So this isn't like totally breaking news, but we're getting closer and closer, I think, to real disclosure on this. And this is, in my opinion, a crime against humanity. So, yeah, I am interested to see what more unfolds between now and Tulsi Gabbard leaving. They're saying now that June 19th is going to be her last day. I saw this whole thing with Bill Pulte. I'm not going to get into the whole timeline of that, but basically Pulte, the narrative was that Pulte came out yesterday and told Gabbard that this was her last day. Tulsi, this is your last day. Pack up and leave. I'm starting today, not the 30th or not the 19th. I guess the 19th is they're moving the goalposts on that. And then all of a sudden Trump comes out and says, actually, our DNI is going to be John Clayton, this lawyer from Sullivan and Cromwell, which is a CIA law firm, the original CIA law firm. And John Clayton, SDNY Attorney General, that puts him at the heart of a lot of this like counterterrorism stuff. Interesting development, very, very interesting development. Do hope we're going to see more out of Tulsi. I hope that her role in this isn't over yet, even when she leaves the DNI. But we'll see what happens. All right, guys, I'm going to have to probably land it here. Hit the thumbs up, share the show. Let's see if we have any questions or comments from the chat. Looks like we're good. All right, guys, I will be back on Friday or Tuesday. Y'all have a Rising Tire says, is it true that there's disclosure about human trafficking in these biolabs documented? I haven't seen that yet, although the Russians have made that claim for sure. The Russians have talked about the human trafficking element of it. So we will see how that shakes out. But there's not anything. I don't see anything about human trafficking in this. This is only 4 pages, though. This is like a pretty small little release from Tulsi Gabbard. So maybe we'll see more come out of it. But for now, nothing about human trafficking. All right, guys, we'll see you Tuesday. Y'all have a great weekend.
A long, long time ago, a writer went to a dangerous cave. Because he was on an adventure. Or like he smelled like an adventure. But the cave was protected by spiders and lizards. No, it was snakes. Snakes! Why did it have to be snakes? Whatever it was, the raider wasn't scared of it because it was Ghost, the lotion raider. Then he found the golden deodorant. That's not deodorant, that's the tallow bar. It was soft disclosure. Ghost had exactly 1 second to switch it, or the whole cave explodes. And then the boulders started chasing him. Run, Ghost, run! Oh no, he dropped the soft disclosure. I got it. I understand its power now. That lotion is an important artifact and it belongs in every household. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code LotionWaiter for 15% off.